The Galactic Tribunal. The crystalline chamber of the Galactic Concilium hung in the void between stars, a monument to 10,000 years of interstellar diplomacy. Councillor Vexthera of the Kelmorian Dominion watched the holographic voting display with satisfaction as the tally climbed. Her chitinous fingers drummed against the obsidian table. "The motion passes," announced High Arbiter Zun, his gravelly voice echoing through translation matrices. By a vote of 47-3, the Galactic Concilium declares economic and territorial war upon the Human Federation of Sol. Captain Elena Vasquez stood alone in the human delegation box, her dark eyes scanning the assembly of alien representatives. She'd known this was coming. For 6 months, the coalition against humanity had been building. Species jealous of human expansion, fearful of human adaptability, resentful of human success in trade negotiations. "You realize," Elena said calmly, her voice cutting through the celebratory murmurs, "that you've just made the worst strategic mistake in galactic history." Vexthera's mandibles clicked in amusement. Bold words from a species that controls merely 12 systems. "We represent 400 civilizations spanning 30,000 worlds. Your bravado is quaint." "It's not bravado," Elena replied, gathering her data pads. "It's a warning you won't heed until it's too late." Commander Thrain Kessler waited for Elena in the diplomatic shuttle, his weathered face grim. At 58, he'd served in 3 human conflicts and knew the weight of what had just happened. "They actually did it," he muttered as Elena sealed the airlock. 47 species. We're outnumbered 1,000 to 1. Then we'll just have to be 1,000 times better. Elena strapped into the pilot's seat and engaged engines. "Get me a secure line to Admiral Chin. We need to move to phase Prometheus immediately." "The contingency plan? You really think they'll authorize it?" "Thrain, Earth didn't send a diplomat here. They sent a soldier with a diplomatic badge. They knew how this would end." She smiled grimly. "And they planned accordingly." 6 days later, Admiral Marcus Chin stood on the bridge of the UHSF Indomitable, humanity's largest warship. At 3 kilometers long, bristling with magnetic accelerator cannons and fusion missile arrays, it was the pride of the fleet. It was also entirely obsolete by Concilium standards. "Status report," Chin commanded, his silver hair catching the glow of tactical displays. "All human colonies are implementing evacuation protocols," reported Lieutenant Yuki Tanaka, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. "We've got maybe 2 weeks before the first Kelmorian battle groups reach our outer systems." 2 weeks, Chin mused. "They really do think we're primitives?" "Vexthera's probably already measuring drapes for Government House on Mars. Sir, what she doesn't know could fill several databases." This from Dr. Naveen Patel, the ship's xenotechnology specialist. "I've finished the analysis of their voting patterns. Every species that voted for war shares one critical flaw. Overconfidence. That too, but I mean tactically. They've all been at peace for at least 4 centuries. The Kelmiorians haven't fought a real war in 600 years. They've forgotten what war actually means." Chin nodded slowly. "While humanity has never forgotten." "Continue." "Their military doctrine is built around containment and overwhelming force. Siege warfare on a galactic scale. They'll surround our systems, cut supply lines, and wait for surrender." Patel pulled up star charts showing projected enemy movements. "Traditional, methodical, predictable. And absolutely unprepared for what we're about to do," added Commander Sarah Okonkwo, the tactical officer. Her Nigerian accent thickened with excitement. "Admiral, phase Prometheus is insane. Brilliant but insane. The best plans usually are." Chin looked at the assembled officers. "Ladies and gentlemen, for 10,000 years the Galactic Concilium has played by certain rules. Formal declarations, massed fleets, territorial objectives. They think war is a game of chess played across light years." He pulled up a new display showing human fleet dispositions, but they weren't defensive positions. They were scattered across Concilium space in seemingly random patterns. "But we're not going to play chess," Yuki said, understanding dawning. "We're going to play something else entirely." "Poker," Chin confirmed. "And we're going all in." Across human space the exodus began. Civilian ships lifted from 12 worlds, heading for designated safe zones in unmapped sectors. But these weren't panicked refugees. This was orchestrated, planned, rehearsed. Every human colony had prepared for this possibility since first contact with the Concilium. On the agricultural world of New Saskatchewan, Governor James Whitehorse watched the last transport lift through autumn skies. His colony of 2 million was now reduced to a skeleton crew of 300 volunteers, all military veterans. Think they'll leave anything standing? Asked his deputy Maria Reeves. Probably not, James admitted. But that's why we removed everything valuable 3 months ago. When the Kelmorians arrive, they'll find empty cities and booby-trapped infrastructure. He smiled coldly. And when they try to garrison this world, they'll learn why humanity invented the term insurgency. Across the cosmos, 47 alien empires prepared their fleets for an easy victory. They'd voted for war with the confidence of ancient powers crushing an upstart. But humanity hadn't voted. Humanity had prepared. And there was a difference. First blood. The Kelmorian Third Fleet emerged from quantum slip into the new Saskatchewan system with overwhelming force. 300 warships materialized in perfect formation, their shields shimmering like soap bubbles across the void. Fleet Commander Zalketh studied the tactical display with satisfaction. No orbital defenses detected, reported his sensor operator. Minimal energy signatures from the planet. They've abandoned it. As expected, Zalketh's mandibles clicked. The humans understand they cannot win. Dispatch occupation forces and establish a garrison. This world will serve as our forward staging base for the assault on Mars. What Zalketh didn't detect were the 12 human ships hiding in the asteroid belt, their hulls coated with experimental stealth composites. Captain Rebecca Torres watched the Kelmorian fleet spread out with predatory focus. They're doing exactly what the tactical profile predicted, she whispered to her crew aboard the corvette Relentless. Overconfident, sloppy formation discipline. They think they've already won. Her executive officer, Lieutenant Commander Dmitry Volkov, checked weapons status. All railgun capacitors charged. Fusion warheads armed. Once we light this candle, there's no going back. There was no going back the moment they voted. Rebecca's finger hovered over the firing authorization. All ships, this is Torres. Target selection confirmed. Fire on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark. 12 ships, each no larger than a Kelmorian destroyer, unleashed hell. The revolutionary human railgun technology accelerated tungsten penetrators to 15% light speed, far faster than Concilium weapons. The first salvo struck before Kelmorian sensors even registered the attack. 3 capital ships ruptured, their shields overwhelmed by kinetic energy. Fusion missiles followed, smart targeting wounded vessels. Break formation. Rebecca commanded. Execute scatter pattern Theta. Make them chase us. The Relentless and its sister ships dove toward the planet's gravity well, using New Saskatchewan's mass to slingshot between targets. The Kelmorian fleet, built for set-piece battles, struggled to track the darting human corvettes. Zalketh watched in horror as another cruiser exploded. How are they moving so fast? They're using the planet's gravity, his navigator shouted. And their ships are much lighter than our projections indicated. Commander, they've sacrificed armor and crew comfort for pure speed and firepower. Then concentrate fire. They can't have heavy shields. But the human ships were already gone, quantum drives engaging. They vanished into slipspace, leaving behind 18 destroyed Kelmorian vessels and a fleet commander who suddenly understood he'd been lured into a trap. Send word to High Command, Zalketh ordered, his voice hollow. The humans, they fight differently. News of the new Saskatchewan raid spread through human fleet channels within hours. Admiral Chen watched the combat footage in the Indomitable's war room, surrounded by his command staff. 18-0, Commander Okonkwo reported. No human casualties. Torres and her squadron are already en route to their next target. The Concilium will call it a minor skirmish, Dr. Patel observed. Losing 18 ships out of 300 won't change their strategic calculations. It's not about the ships, Chen said. It's about the message. For 10,000 years, the Concilium has believed they have military supremacy. We just proved otherwise. He zoomed out on the tactical display. How many more raiding groups are in position? Lieutenant Tanaka pulled up deployment data. 43 squadrons, all operating independently. Captain Torres's playbook is being distributed fleet-wide. We can sustain operations like this for approximately 6 months before logistical constraints become critical. 6 months to teach them fear, Chen mused. Meanwhile, what's the status of Project Valkyrie? The research station at Proxima is ahead of schedule, Patel reported, excitement creeping into his voice. Dr. Zhang believes she can have the first prototype operational within 8 weeks. If successful, it will make our current ships look like toys. Chen nodded. Then we buy her those 8 weeks. No matter the cost. On the Concilium homeworld of Zentera, Vexthera convened an emergency war council. Representatives from the 47-member species filled the chamber, their earlier confidence noticeably diminished. One raid, she insisted. A lucky strike by human guerrillas. Our fleets will adapt. But Admiral Krutok of the Varnish Collective wasn't convinced. The reptilian warrior had actually fought in wars, unlike most Concilium commanders. I've reviewed the combat data. The humans aren't fighting to control territory. They're fighting to bleed us. Every ship we lose is a strategic victory for them because we have to protect supply lines across 400 systems. They only have to protect 12. Then we accelerate the timetable, Vexthera decided. Deploy the Grand Armada. 3,000 ships. We'll crush their home system directly and end this quickly. That's exactly what they want us to do, Krutok warned. We're being manipulated. Enough. Vexthera's mandibles snapped shut. The Grand Armada launches within the week. We'll show these upstarts what real power looks like. As the council dispersed, Krutok lingered. He'd studied human history, something few Concilium members bothered to do. He'd read about their wars, their tactics, their terrible persistence. The humans had a saying, no plan survives contact with the enemy. But Krutok feared the Concilium's plan wouldn't even survive the approach. Back on Earth, in a bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, Elena Vasquez briefed the Human Federation Council. The 12 colony governors appeared via hologram, along with Earth's president, Amara Osei. The trap is set, Elena reported. Our raids have provoked exactly the response we predicted. The Concilium is assembling its largest fleet in centuries. 3,000 ships will arrive at Earth in approximately 3 weeks. Governor Whitehorse, still on New Saskatchewan coordinating guerrilla operations, looked concerned. Can we actually stop that many ships? We don't need to stop them, President Osei said calmly. We need to destroy them. And for that, we need them concentrated in one place, committed to one objective, unable to retreat. We're using Earth as bait, Elena confirmed. Every human ship, every defensive platform, every prototype weapon we've developed will converge on our home system. When the Concilium fleet arrives, we'll give them the battle they want. And then? Asked Governor Maria Reeves. Elena smiled without humor. Then we show them why you should never corner a predator in its own den. Across the galaxy, fleets moved toward inevitable collision. The Concilium prepared for a quick, decisive victory. Humanity prepared for survival. The difference would prove fatal, but not for humanity. The gathering storm. Dr. Keiko Zhang hadn't slept in 47 hours. The research station orbiting Proxima Centauri hummed with activity as her team raced against time. In the main laboratory, suspended in a magnetic containment field, floated humanity's secret weapon, a prototype ship no larger than a fighter craft. Run the simulation again, Keiko commanded, her eyes bloodshot but intense. I need to see the quantum displacement cascade one more time. Her assistant, Dr. Arne Bergstrom, initiated the sequence. Holographic projections showed the test ship phasing through multiple dimensions of spacetime. The mathematics still hold. Displacement efficiency at 94%. We can move ships instantaneously across distances that would take conventional quantum drives hours to traverse. But can we weaponize it? Keiko pressed. Theory is beautiful, but Admiral Chin needs something that kills Kelmorian battleships. Watch. Arne ran a new simulation. The test ship phase-shifted directly into the interior of a target vessel, then detonated. The results were catastrophic. We bypassed shields, armor, point defense, everything. One ship, one target, complete annihilation. Keiko felt a chill despite the lab's climate control. We've just invented the perfect assassination weapon. We've invented survival, Arne corrected grimly. The Concilium has numbers. We need force multiplication. While scientists raced to complete Project Valkyrie, the human fleet consolidated around Earth. Captain Javier Mendoza brought his destroyer squadron through the Mars shipyards, collecting ammunition and supplies. Look at that, his weapons officer, Lieutenant Feng Lu, pointed toward the construction berths. Dozens of new ships were taking shape, but these weren't conventional warships. What are those? Drone carriers, Javier explained. Each one deploys 500 autonomous combat drones. Admiral Chen's betting that quantity has a quality all its own. We might be outnumbered by living crews, but we're going to outnumber them in combat units. Assuming the AI doesn't glitch at the worst possible moment. Lieutenant, optimism is mandatory during apocalypse preparations. Javier grinned despite the tension. Besides, the drones are slave to human command ships. We're not making the Concilium's mistake of assuming automation equals reliability. The shipyard's commander, Captain Ayana Mwangi, contacted them via Mendoza, you're cleared for departure in 6 hours. And you're getting upgraded sensors. New detection suite courtesy of our Proxima research team. Should give you an edge in targeting. Every advantage helps when you're preparing for Armageddon, Javier replied. What's the latest intelligence on the Grand Armada? Ayana's expression darkened. They're coming. 3,000 ships just like we predicted. ETA is 18 days. And Javier? They're not sending occupation forces. Every ship in that fleet is combat rated. They mean to annihilate us. Then we'd better not disappoint them. Aboard the Indomitable, Admiral Chen reviewed the defensive deployments with Commander Okonkwo. The holographic display showed Earth surrounded by concentric shells of firepower, orbital defense platforms, minefields, missile batteries, and over 400 human warships. It looks impressive, Okonkwo admitted. But against 3,000 ships? It's not about winning a conventional battle, Chen explained. Look at the deployment pattern. We're not positioned to defend. We're positioned to funnel. Okonkwo studied the formation more carefully and understanding dawned. You're creating a killing field. The minefields force them into predictable approach vectors. The platforms establish crossfire zones. And our ships will execute hit and fade attacks from every angle, Chen confirmed. We turn their numbers into a disadvantage. They'll be so densely packed they'll struggle to maneuver without colliding. Meanwhile, our ships operate independently, maximizing chaos. It's insane, Okonkwo breathed. You're deliberately letting them reach Earth. Specifically, letting them reach low Earth orbit, where their range advantage becomes meaningless and their numbers become a liability. Chen highlighted several positions. That's where Project Valkyrie deploys. Dr. Zhang promises me 12 operational units. 12 ships that can phase directly into Concilium flagships and detonate. Kamikaze attacks? Crewed by volunteers who know exactly what they're signing up for. Chen's face was granite. I hate it. But we're fighting for our species' survival. I'll use every weapon available. Lieutenant Tanaka interrupted. Admiral, incoming priority transmission from Captain Torres' squadron. Rebecca Torres' face appeared on the main screen, bruised and exhausted but triumphant. Reporting successful completion of Operation Hornet. We hit the Concilium supply depot at Kardec Station. Destroyed approximately 60% of their forward munitions stockpile before retreating. Casualties. Lost 2 ships. The Defiant and Cerberus. All crew accounted for. They made it to the escape pods before the ships were destroyed. The Kelmiorians took them prisoner. Chen's jaw tightened. Then we'll get them back. Well done, Captain. Return to Earth immediately. You've earned your place in the final battle. Wouldn't miss it for the galaxy, sir. Torres out. As the transmission ended, Dr. Patel entered the war room carrying a data tablet. Admiral, I've been analyzing Concilium communication intercepts. They're more fractured than we realized. At least 15 species in their coalition are expressing doubts about the war. The Varnish Collective, in particular, seems to be questioning High Command's strategy. Can we exploit that? Chen asked. Possibly. The Varnish Admiral Krutok has been quite vocal in private channels. He understands military strategy better than Vexthera does. If we could communicate with him directly. No. Chen's response was immediate. We can't afford to show any weakness by seeking negotiation now. When we defeat the Grand Armada, not if, when, that's when diplomacy becomes possible. Right now we speak through actions only. Elena Vasquez had returned from the Concilium homeworld and now coordinated intelligence operations from Earth's Strategic Command. She reviewed reports of human civilian evacuations with satisfaction. 12 million people relocated to hidden colonies in uncharted sectors. If Earth fell, humanity would survive. But Earth wouldn't fall. She was certain of that with an iron conviction born from careful planning. Ma'am, her aide, Corporal Jackson Hayes, approached nervously. We've intercepted a Concilium broadcast. They're offering terms. If we surrender now, they'll allow limited human autonomy under Concilium oversight. Elena laughed bitterly. Limited autonomy. That's slavery with better marketing. What else? Vexthera is demanding you specifically be turned over for trial as a war criminal. She blames you for provoking the conflict. Of course she does. Easier than admitting she walked into a trap. Elena stood and stretched. Ignore it. We don't negotiate with people who voted to erase us. Outside Strategic Command, she found President Osei watching the sunset over what remained of Denver. Much of the city had been evacuated, leaving gleaming towers mostly empty. Beautiful, isn't it? Osei said quietly. I keep wondering if we'll see another sunrise after the battle. We will, Elena assured her. Every simulation, every war game, every tactical analysis points to the same conclusion. We're better at war than they are. Not because we're more violent, because we remember what violence costs. They've forgotten. 3,000 ships, Elena. Against species that invented blitzkrieg, carrier warfare, nuclear deterrence, and guerrilla tactics before we even left our solar system. Elena's voice hardened. The Concilium thinks war is about who has more ships. We know it's about will, creativity, and acceptable losses. And we're willing to lose everything except our freedom. Osei nodded slowly. Then let's show them what humanity votes for when pushed to the edge. Victory, Elena said simply. We always vote for victory. Across space, the Grand Armada gathered, 3,000 ships representing the military might of 47 civilizations. And accelerating toward Earth, those ships carried commanders who had never faced an enemy like humanity. The storm was gathering. The vote had been cast. Now came the victory. The dragon's teeth. The Grand Armada entered the Sol system like a tidal wave of steel and fury. 3,000 ships emerged from quantum slip space beyond Jupiter's orbit, their combined mass creating gravitational ripples that set off alarms across human sensor networks. Fleet Commander Zalkath, promoted after surviving the New Saskatchewan raid, commanded the vanguard. His earlier humiliation had taught him caution, but Vexthara's orders were explicit. Overwhelming force, rapid victory, no mercy. Scan for human fleet positions, he ordered his sensor operator. Multiple contacts. At least 300 ships in Earth orbit. Defensive platforms throughout the inner system. And the operator's voice faltered. Commander, the asteroid belt. It's moving. What? Thousands of objects with active propulsion. They've turned the entire belt into a minefield. Zalkath studied the tactical display. The humans had indeed weaponized their own asteroid belt, positioning hundreds of massive rocks on intercept trajectories. Simple, primitive, and devastatingly effective. Maintain formation. Deploy point defense to maximum. All ships, advance at quarter speed. He opened a channel to the fleet. This is exactly what we expected. The humans are desperate. They're throwing everything at us, but rocks don't win wars. Maintain discipline, Anne. The first human strike came not from the asteroid field but from behind them. Captain Torres' squadron had shadowed the Grand Armada through quantum slip, emerging at the fleet's rear. 12 corvettes unleashed concentrated railgun fire into the Armada's engine sections, targeting propulsion systems. Hit and fade. Rebecca commanded. Don't get caught in their return fire. But the Armada was ready this time. Destroyer squadrons peeled off, pursuing the human ships with coordinated volleys. The corvette Phantom took a direct hit, its hull rupturing. Escape pods scattered like seeds. We got their attention, Rebecca reported to Admiral Chin. They're fragmenting the formation to chase us. The opening is yours. From Earth orbit, Chin watched the Armada's approach. The enemy fleet had taken the bait, splitting into pursuit groups. All ships execute pattern Leonidas. Engage at will. The human defense fleet surged forward, not in a wall of steel but in scattered wolf packs. Each squadron targeted vulnerable ships in the now fragmented Armada formation. Captain Mendoza's destroyers dove toward a Kelmorian carrier group. Phone, target their launch bays. I want those fighters grounded. Railguns spoke in silent fury. Magnetic accelerators flung tungsten penetrators across thousands of kilometers. The Kelmorian carrier supremacy shuddered as projectiles tore through its hangar decks. Secondary explosions rippled through its hull. Multiple kills confirmed. Phone reported. But sir, they're adapting. The Armada is rotating shields to face our attack vectors. Then we change vectors. Mendoza grinned fiercely. All ships, emergency burn. Make them chase us through the asteroid field. The destroyer squadron plunged into the weaponized belt with Kelmorian ships in pursuit. What followed was chaos. Massive rocks equipped with proximity mines detonated around the pursuing vessels. The destroyers, familiar with the terrain and flying recklessly, threaded the needle. The Kelmiorians, trying to maintain formation discipline, paid in blood. But the Armada kept coming. For every ship destroyed, 10 more pushed forward. Aboard the indomitable, Commander Okonkwo tracked the battle with mounting concern. "Admiral, we're inflicting heavy casualties, but the mathematics are against us. We've destroyed maybe 200 ships. They still have over 2,000 in fighting condition." "Then it's time for the dragon's teeth," Chin said quietly. "Activate the drone carriers." Throughout human-controlled space, 30 carrier vessels opened their holds. From each poured 500 autonomous combat drones, sleek, deadly machines no larger than civilian shuttles but packed with explosives and guidance systems. 15,000 drones swarmed the armada like enraged hornets. Zalketh watched in horror as his tactical display filled with red hostile markers. "What are those?" "Autonomous weapons," his operator shouted. "They're everywhere." The drones didn't fight like ships. They fought like bullets. No evasion, no hesitation, just pure kamikaze determination. They phase-shifted through armada formations, detonating against shields, hulls, and exposed weapon systems. A varnished dreadnought tried to intercept a drone swarm with point defense fire. Hundreds of drones died, but dozens got through. Explosions rippled across the dreadnought's hull like deadly flowers blooming. "All ships, point defense to maximum. Shoot them down," Zalketh commanded. But for every drone destroyed, 2 more took its place. And while the armada focused on the swarms, human ships continued their hit-and-fade attacks. Admiral Krutok, commanding the varnished contingent, recognized the trap. "We're fighting on 2 fronts, the drones and the crewed ships. Our fire control can't prioritize effectively. We need to withdraw and regroup." "Absolutely not." Vexthara's voice cut through the command channel from her flagship far behind the main fleet. "Press the attack. Earth is within reach." "Earth is a death trap," Krutok snarled. "Can't you see? They're not defending their world, they're using it as an anvil to break us against." But Vexthara's pride wouldn't allow retreat. "All ships, full advance. I want planetary bombardment range within 6 hours." Krutok made a decision that would haunt the Concilium for generations. "Varnish fleet, this is Admiral Krutok. Disengage and withdraw to Jupiter's orbit." "That's a direct order." 150 Varnish ships broke formation, pulling back from the battle. Other species, seeing the Varnish retreat, began to waver. The armada's cohesion was fracturing. On Earth, President Osei watched the battle unfold from strategic command. The holographic display showed human losses mounting. 70 ships destroyed, another 100 damaged, but the armada was bleeding worse. "They're still coming," Elena observed. "Another 1,000 ships heading directly for us. Then we use the last resort." Osei entered her authorization codes. "Activate Project Valkyrie." At Proxima Centauri, Dr. Zhang received the order she'd been dreading. "All Valkyrie pilots, this is mission control. You are cleared for deployment. May God go with you." 12 ships, each barely larger than a fighter, launched from the research station. Inside each sat a volunteer. Men and women who'd said goodbye to loved ones, written final letters, and accepted that they would not return. Lieutenant Commander Sasha Volkov, Dmitri's sister, piloted Valkyrie 1. "All units, remember your training. Target command ships only. Make every death count." The Valkyrie ships engaged their quantum displacement drives, the technology that Dr. Zhang had perfected through sleepless weeks. Space twisted around them and they ceased to exist in conventional spacetime. Aboard the Kelmorian flagship Dominance, Vexthara was dictating surrender terms to her staff when reality tore open in the center of her bridge. Valkyrie 1 materialized inside the flagship's command deck. Sasha had 3 seconds to see the shocked faces of the Kelmorian crew before she triggered the detonation sequence. The fusion warhead vaporized the flagship from within. Across the battlefield, 12 Valkyrie ships appeared inside 12 Concilium capital ships. 12 volunteers became martyrs. 12 enemy flagships ceased to exist. The psychological impact was immediate. The Armada had just watched their most powerful vessels destroyed by an attack that bypassed every defense they possessed. Ships that had survived human railguns and drone swarms were suddenly vulnerable to an enemy that could strike from within. Panic spread like wildfire. "Retreat," Zalketh ordered, his earlier confidence shattered. "All ships, emergency withdrawal." But Admiral Chen wasn't done. "All human ships, pursue and destroy. Give them no respite." The hunter had become the hunted. The vote for war had been unanimous. The vote for survival would be written in fire and fury. Breaking point. The retreat was a nightmare. What had been an organized armada became a fleeing mob as Concilium ships scrambled toward the relative safety of Jupiter's orbit. Human squadrons pursued like wolves chasing wounded deer, picking off stragglers with methodical precision. Captain Javier Mendoza's destroyers ran down a limping Kelmorian cruiser near Mars. One more for the tally, he muttered as railgun fire reduced it to expanding debris. Phone, what's our ammunition status? Down to 40%, Captain. We've been fighting for 11 hours straight. Then we make every shot count. Javier scanned the tactical display. The Armada had lost nearly 1,000 ships in the Battle of Earth. Human losses stood at 93 vessels destroyed, but every human ship had sold itself dearly. Sir, Admiral Chen is ordering all pursuit squadrons to disengage. We're to regroup at Earth for resupply. Javier felt the exhaustion hit him all at once. Helm, bring us about. And somebody find me coffee. The real stuff, not that recycled protein slurry. At Jupiter's orbit, the shattered Armada regrouped. Admiral Krutak's varnished fleet had taken minimal casualties by pulling back early, and now he faced the wrath of the remaining Concilium commanders. Coward, spat Commander Thexlar of the Shinai Collective, his translator crackling with rage. You abandoned us to save your own ships. I saved my ships because I'm not an idiot, Krutak replied coolly. Which is more than I can say for the commanders who followed Vexthara's orders straight into a meat grinder. He gestured at the tactical display showing their losses. We went in with 3,000 ships. We're down to 1,900. And the humans still control Earth. Zalketh, now the senior Kelmorian officer after Vexthara's death, clicked his mandibles in frustration. The Valkyrie weapons changed everything. How do we defend against ships that can appear inside our hulls? You don't, Krutak said bluntly. That's the point. The humans developed a weapon that makes our defensive advantages irrelevant. We either find a counter-technology or we accept we cannot win. Accept defeat? Thexlar hissed. We still outnumber them 6-1. Numbers mean nothing against weapons that ignore conventional defense. Krutak pulled up analysis of the Valkyrie strikes. These ships phase through multiple dimensions. Our sensors can't detect them until they materialize. By then it's too late. Unless someone here has a breakthrough in dimensional physics in the next few hours, we're fighting an unwinnable war. The Command Council fell silent. The reality of their situation was sinking in. We could sue for peace, suggested a representative from the Morthack Confederation quietly. Negotiate a ceasefire before more lives are lost. That would require admitting we were wrong, Zalketh said. The Concilium voted for this war. 47 civilizations supported it. Retreat now and we look weak before the entire galaxy. Better weak than extinct, Krutak growled. Back on Earth, the victory celebration was muted. Too many empty chairs at the pilots' debriefing. Too many names added to the memorial wall. Admiral Chen stood before the assembled survivors, his face weary. Today humanity proved we will not go quietly into extinction. We faced impossible odds and emerged bloodied but unbroken. He paused. But this war isn't over. The Armada retreated, but they didn't surrender. They'll regroup, adapt, and come at us again. Captain Torres, her face bandaged from an injury during the battle, raised her hand. What about the Valkyrie pilots? Are we building more? Dr. Zhang stepped forward, her eyes red from crying. She'd known every Valkyrie pilot personally. We can build more ships, yes. Finding more volunteers willing to die. Her voice broke. 12 brave souls gave everything. I won't ask for more unless there's no other option. Then we find other options, Chin said firmly. Dr. Patel, what's the intelligence assessment? The xenotechnology specialist projected holographic data. The Concilium is fracturing. Intercepted communications show at least 20 species questioning whether to continue the war. The Varnish Collective is openly calling for negotiations. The Kelmorians and Shinai are demanding one more offensive to restore honor, but they're isolated. Can we exploit the division? President Osei asked. She joined the meeting via hologram from Strategic Command. Possibly. If we could communicate directly with moderates like Krutak. Patel trailed off. Elena Vasquez, who'd been silent until now, spoke up. No. We don't negotiate from anything less than total advantage. They voted to destroy us. We need to make them regret that vote so thoroughly that no species ever threatens humanity again. You're talking about revenge, Osei said carefully. I'm talking about deterrence, Madam President. The Concilium respects strength. If we seek peace now, they'll see it as weakness. We press the advantage, we take the war to them, and we make them sue for peace on our terms. Chin nodded slowly. Elena's right. We've shown we can defend ourselves. Now we show we can attack. Commander Okonkwo, what's the status of our offensive strike capability? Okonkwo pulled up fleet dispositions. We've got approximately 250 combat-ready ships after repairs. Another 100 will be ready within the week. We're stretched thin, but we can field raiding forces. Then we raid, Chin decided. Captain Torres, I'm putting you in command of Operation Thunderbolt. Take every corvette we have and hit Concilium supply lines. Make them bleed logistics. Captain Mendoza, you'll lead Operation Anvil. Target their isolated garrisons and contested sectors. We're switching from defense to offense. Javier and Rebecca exchanged glances. They were exhausted, but the Admiral was right. Momentum mattered in war. What about the Armada at Jupiter? Asked Commander Volkov, Dmitri, who'd been promoted after his sister's sacrifice. 1,900 ships is still a massive threat. Let them sit there and worry, Elena said with cold satisfaction. Every day they wait is another day for doubt to spread, for their coalition to fracture, for their species to question why they're dying for Kelmorian pride. Time is on our side now. In the Concilium chamber on Zentera, emergency sessions had been convened constantly since the Battle of Earth. The holographic forum was in chaos as representatives from 47 species shouted over each other. We demand immediate reinforcement of the Armada. Councillor Thexlar insisted. We demand withdrawal and peace negotiations, countered Councillor Marceth of the Varnish. High Arbiter Zun, who'd presided over the vote for war, slammed his crystalline gavel. Order. We will have order. The chamber quieted, but the tension was palpable. The situation is clear, Zun continued. The human defenses proved more formidable than anticipated. We must decide, do we commit more resources to achieve victory, or do we seek negotiated settlement? Settlement? Thexlar spat. They destroyed over 1,000 of our ships. We cannot show weakness. Pride is a luxury we can no longer afford, Marceth argued. The humans have demonstrated technological superiority in key areas. Continuing this war will cost us dearly. Perhaps, said a new voice, we're asking the wrong question. All attention turned to Councillor Ninera of the Luminar Ascendancy. The Luminars had remained neutral in the initial vote, one of the 3 species to abstain. Now Ninera's bioluminescent skin pulsed with calculated thought. The question isn't whether we can win, Ninera continued. It's whether victory is worth the cost. The humans control 12 systems. 47 civilizations control 30,000. Even if we defeat them, what do we gain? Territory we'll have to garrison forever? Resources that cost more to secure than they're worth. Respect. Thexlar insisted. We cannot allow a primitive species to defy the Concilium. The species that just defeated our Grand Armada is not primitive, Ninera replied calmly. That's the delusion that led us into this disaster. We saw humans as beneath us and we're paying the price for our arrogance. The chamber erupted in argument again. In the chaos, no one noticed the intelligence report being delivered to Zun. Human raiding forces had struck 3 major Concilium supply depots in the past 6 hours. The war was spreading. The humans, it seemed, had no intention of accepting anything less than complete victory. The vote for war had been easy. The price was proving catastrophic. The price of pride. The Concilium supply depot at Kardec Station had been a monument to efficient logistics. Warehouses containing munitions for 50 battle groups, fuel reserves to power a fleet for months, and repair facilities that could service 100 ships simultaneously. Past tense. Captain Rebecca Torres watched the station burn as her corvette squadron retreated to safe distance. That's the 3rd depot this week. How much longer can they sustain offensive operations without supplies? According to Dr. Patel's analysis, maybe 6 weeks before critical shortages, reported her tactical officer. After that, the Armada at Jupiter becomes a very expensive collection of inert metal. Rebecca allowed herself a grim smile. Then we keep hitting them. All ships set course for the depot at Shenner. Let's not give them time to reinforce. But even as human raiders struck across Concilium space, the political landscape was shifting. On the Varnish homeworld of Carnades, Admiral Krutok addressed his planetary council. The reptilian elders listened as he outlined the military situation with brutal honesty. We cannot win this war, he concluded. Not without casualties that would cripple our civilization for generations. The humans fight differently than any enemy we've faced in our recorded history. They're willing to sacrifice everything for victory. Elder Shartok, who'd voted to support the war, hissed in frustration. You're saying we should surrender? Accept humiliation? I'm saying we should negotiate before the situation becomes worse. Crew Talk displayed intelligence reports. Human raiding forces are becoming more aggressive. They're not just defending anymore, they're hunting us. Every day we delay, the strategic balance shifts further in their favor. The Kelmorians will never agree to peace talks. Then the Kelmiorians can continue fighting alone. I'm recommending we withdraw the Varnish fleet from the coalition and seek separate negotiations with Earth. The chamber fell silent. What Crew Talk was suggesting was unprecedented, breaking from a Concilium military operation mid-campaign. The other species will call us cowards, Elder Marvesh said quietly. They can call us whatever they want from the ruins of their supply depots, Crew Talk replied. I'd rather be a living coward than a dead hero. After hours of debate, the Varnish Council voted. By a narrow margin, they authorized Crew Talk to reach out to humanity for negotiations. Admiral Chin received the Varnish communication request with surprise. He convened his command staff to discuss the implications. It could be a trap, Commander Okonkwo warned. It could also be genuine, Elena Vasquez countered. Crew Talk is the one Concilium commander who actually understands military strategy. If anyone would recognize a losing position, it's him. Dr. Patel pulled up intelligence on the Varnish Collective. Their species has a strong cultural emphasis on pragmatism over pride. They're merchant warriors, they understand cost-benefit analysis. If Crew Talk calculates the war is too expensive, his government will likely support withdrawal. What are they offering? President Osei asked via hologram. Chin read the transmission. Full ceasefire of Varnish forces. Return of all human prisoners they've taken. And they're willing to share intelligence on Concilium military deployments in exchange for a non-aggression pact. Intelligence on their own allies? Javier Mendoza looked shocked. That's not negotiation, that's betrayal. That's survival, Elena corrected. The coalition is fracturing. Crew Talk is smart enough to get out before it collapses completely. Osei considered carefully. If we accept, it sets a precedent. Other species might follow the Varnish lead. Which is exactly what we want, Chin said. The Concilium's strength was their unity. Break that and we don't need to defeat 47 species, we only need to defeat the one stubborn enough to keep fighting. Then my recommendation is we accept, Elena said. But we set harsh terms. The Varnish withdraw completely from the conflict. They provide full intelligence cooperation. And they pay reparations for the ships they destroyed before pulling out. Reparations. Patel looked surprised. It can't be free to attack us and then change your mind, Elena explained. There has to be a cost or every species will think they can take a shot and negotiate when it goes badly. Chin nodded. Draft the terms. But add one more condition. The Varnish publicly announce their withdrawal and their reasons. I want every species in the Concilium to hear that they're pulling out because continuing the war is suicide. The Varnish accepted humanity's terms 3 days later. The announcement hit the Concilium like a seismic shock. One of the largest species in the coalition had just declared the war unwinnable and abandoned their allies. In the emergency council session that followed, chaos reigned. Traitors. Councillor Thexlar screamed at the Varnish delegation. You've broken sacred oaths. We've broken no oaths, Marseth replied calmly. We agreed to participate in a war against humanity. That war proved to be based on false assumptions about human military capability. We're simply recognizing reality faster than you are. High Arbiter Zun tried to maintain order. The Varnish withdrawal is concerning. But we still have 46 species committed to 43, interrupted 9 era of the Luminar Ascendancy. The Luminar Ascendancy, the Thal Consortium, and the Meridian Union are also withdrawing from the conflict. We see no benefit in continued hostilities. The chamber erupted. In a matter of minutes, the coalition had lost 4 major members. Thexlar looked desperate. We still have sufficient forces to what? Demanded a representative from the Kylan hegemony. Throw more ships into a conflict that's already cost us over 1,000 vessels? For what gain? The humans control the same 12 systems they controlled when this started. We've accomplished nothing except proving they're more dangerous than we thought. More species began to waver. The vote that had been 47-3 was rapidly reversing. Zalketh, commanding the remnants of the Kelmorian fleet, watched his coalition crumble. He opened a private channel to the remaining hardline commanders. We need a decisive victory. Something to prove the humans can still be beaten. With what? Asked Commander Volmar of the Shinai. Our supplies are running low. Our crews are demoralized. Half our fleet is scattered across 3 sectors trying to protect supply lines from human raiders. We don't have the strength for another major offensive. Then we make a statement, Zalketh decided. A strike the humans can't ignore. Something that forces them to negotiate. What are you suggesting? Zalketh pulled up star charts of human-controlled space. New Saskatchewan. The agricultural world where this all began. We retake it, we fortify it, we make it clear that humans aren't invincible. That's symbolic politics, not military strategy. In this war they're the same thing, Zalketh insisted. The humans are winning because species believe they're winning. We change that belief, we change everything. The plan was desperate, driven by pride rather than logic. But it was the only plan the remaining coalition members had. 800 ships departed Jupiter's orbit, heading for New Saskatchewan. It was a fraction of the original armada, but it was still a formidable force. They had no idea what was waiting for them. On New Saskatchewan, Governor James Whitehorse received word of the approaching fleet with satisfaction. His skeleton crew of 300 had spent weeks preparing for exactly this scenario. They're coming back, he told his deputy Maria Reeves. Time to show them what a defended world actually looks like. Across the planet, automated defense systems activated. Hidden railgun emplacements emerged from camouflaged bunkers. Orbital platforms that had seemed disabled suddenly came online. And beneath the colony cities, tunnel networks filled with human guerrilla fighters. They want symbolic victory? James said grimly. Let's give them a symbol they'll never forget. The trap was set. The hunters were about to become the hunted. And the price of pride was about to be paid in full. Victory's price. The Kelmorian fleet emerged from quantum slip into New Saskatchewan's orbit expecting token resistance. What they found was hell. The supposedly abandoned orbital platforms opened fire immediately. But these weren't the defensive weapons Zalketh remembered from the initial invasion. These were upgraded systems incorporating human stealth technology and varnished targeting data that the defecting allies had provided. Evasive maneuvers. Zalketh commanded as railgun fire tore through his vanguard. 3 ships died before they could raise shields. Commander, the planet is bristling with weapons, his sensor operator reported. Energy signatures everywhere. They've fortified the entire surface. Zalketh realized with sickening clarity that he'd walked into another trap. The humans hadn't abandoned New Saskatchewan, they'd turned it into a fortress. On the surface, Governor Whitehorse watched the orbital battle with grim satisfaction. All surface batteries commence firing. Make them pay for every meter of altitude. Magnetic accelerators launched projectiles into the orbital space. The Kelmorian ships, packed into tight formation for the assault, found themselves in a crossfire between orbital platforms and ground-based weapons. This is insane, shouted Commander Volmar from his ship. We're taking 50% casualties and we haven't even reached landing range. Press the attack. Zalketh insisted, desperation creeping into his voice. We need this victory. But victory was already impossible. From behind the Kelmorian fleet, Admiral Chen's task force emerged from quantum slip. 120 human ships, including the Indomitable, had been lying in wait at the system's edge. Hammer and anvil, Chen said quietly. The oldest tactic in human warfare. They're caught between the planet's defenses and our fleet. All ships, attack formation. Show no mercy. The human fleet struck like a spear into the Kelmorian rear. Captain Mendoza's destroyers targeted engine sections. Captain Torres's corvettes hunted damaged stragglers. The Indomitable itself engaged Zalketh's flagship directly. Multiple hull breaches. Zalketh's damage control officer screamed. Shields at 30% and falling. Request reinforcements from the reserve fleet at Jupiter. Zalketh ordered. Sir, there is no reserve fleet. The remaining coalition members are withdrawing. We're alone. The words hit Zalketh like a physical blow. Alone. The Grand Coalition had collapsed, leaving the Kelmiorians to face humanity's wrath by themselves. All ships, Zalketh said, his voice hollow. Retreat. Emergency quantum slip. Get out however you can. The Kelmorian fleet broke and ran. Of the 800 ships that had attacked New Saskatchewan, only 237 escaped. The rest were destroyed or captured. Aboard the Indomitable, Commander Okonkwo reported the final tallies. Enemy fleet neutralized. We've taken significant damage but no ships lost. New Saskatchewan reports minimal civilian casualties and defensive systems still operational. Chen allowed himself a moment of relief before the weight of command settled back onto his shoulders. Casualties among the defensive crews? 47 killed, 118 wounded. Governor Whitehorse is requesting medical supplies and reconstruction support. Granted. And send a message to all human colonies. The war is effectively over. The coalition has collapsed. Chin turned to Elena Vasquez, who'd accompanied the task force. Now comes the hard part. We need to turn military victory into lasting peace. Elena nodded. The Concilium is in chaos. High Arbiter Zun has resigned. The remaining species are pointing fingers, trying to avoid blame. This is our opportunity to reshape the galactic order. Or to make new enemies, Dr. Patel cautioned. We've proven we're dangerous. How do we convince them we're not threats? By being exactly as dangerous as we've proven, Elena said. But directing that danger only at those who threaten us. We extend the same terms to every species, peace on our conditions, or they can join the Kelmorians in trying to fight us. President Osei's hologram appeared. I'm convening a diplomatic summit on Earth in 2 weeks. Every Concilium species is invited to attend. We'll draft a new treaty, one that acknowledges humanity as an equal power, not a subordinate civilization. Some won't accept that, Patel warned. Then they'll face the consequences, Osei replied firmly. We didn't ask for this war. We didn't vote to destroy anyone. But we sure as hell voted to survive, and we did. Now we claim our place at the table. The diplomatic summit on Earth was unprecedented. Representatives from all 47 Concilium species attended, some to seek peace, others to save face, a few to plot revenge. Admiral Krutok represented the Varnish Collective, having been appointed their chief negotiator. He found Elena Vasquez before the formal sessions began. I wanted to tell you personally, Krutok said, his translator rendering his respectful tone. You were right. That warning you gave after the vote, about making the worst strategic mistake in galactic history. We should have listened. You eventually did, Elena replied. You got your people out before the final collapse. That took courage. It took mathematics, Krutok corrected. The numbers never favored us. I just saw it sooner than others. He paused. But I'm curious, did you know you would win? Or were you bluffing when you warned us? Elena smiled enigmatically. Does it matter? We're here, you're here, and we're talking instead of shooting. That's victory enough. The summit's opening session was tense. High Arbiter Zun's replacement, Arbiter Kelshan of the Meridian Union, called the assembly to order. We gather in the shadow of unprecedented conflict, Kelshan began. 47 species voted for war against humanity. That war has ended in defeat. The question now is, what comes next? President Osei stood to address the assembly. What comes next is simple. Humanity demands recognition as a sovereign power with all rights and protections afforded to Concilium members. We demand reparations from species that attacked us, not to punish but to acknowledge that actions have consequences. And we demand a new charter guaranteeing that no species can be voted into extinction. Outrageous, protested the Kelmorian representative. You expect us to pay you after you destroyed our fleets? We expect you to pay us because you attacked us, Elena interjected coldly. You voted for war. We voted for victory. Those votes have consequences. Counselor Ninera of the Luminars spoke up. The human demands are harsh but not unreasonable. They're offering peace on terms that acknowledge reality. We can accept that reality, or we can continue fighting wars we cannot win. Over 3 days of intense negotiation, the Treaty of Earth took shape. Humanity was granted full Concilium membership with veto power over military actions. A demilitarized zone was established around all human systems. Reparations would be paid by the 12 species that had most actively prosecuted the war. A new charter provision prohibited declaring war against any species by vote alone. Technology sharing agreements were established, with humans providing defensive tech in exchange for Concilium's scientific knowledge. The treaty wasn't perfect, but it was peace. On the final day, as representatives prepared to sign, Zalketh approached Admiral Chen privately. I need to know, the Kelmorian commander said. The Valkyrie weapons. The phase shift drives. Did you have those from the beginning, or did you develop them during the war? Chen considered the question. Does it matter? It matters to me. I need to know if we were doomed from the start or if we lost because we gave you time to innovate. We had theoretical frameworks, Chen admitted. Dr. Zhang had been working on dimensional physics for years. But we only weaponized it when you forced us to. You want to know if you could have one? Maybe if you'd struck faster, harder without giving us time to prepare. But that would have required committing to genocide immediately. And if you'd done that, you wouldn't be the people you are. Small comfort, Zalketh said bitterly. It's the only comfort available in war, Chin replied. Both sides pay a price. The winner just pays less. 6 months after the Treaty of Earth, Captain Rebecca Torres stood on the Memorial Plaza outside Strategic Command. The wall bore the names of 1,247 humans who had died in the war, a tiny number compared to the 23,000 Concilium casualties, but each name represented a life, a story, a family forever changed. She traced her finger over one name in particular, Lieutenant Commander Sasha Volkov, Valkyrie 1. They're making her a hero, said a voice behind her. Elena Vasquez approached, her diplomatic credentials replaced by civilian clothes. Congress is naming the new flagship after her. The UHSF Volkov. She'd hate that, Rebecca said with a sad smile. She always said she just wanted to go home to her family's farm on New Europa. Instead she became a symbol. The volunteer who gave everything so humanity could survive. Elena stood beside Rebecca looking at the memorial. Do you think it was worth it? The war? No. War is never worth it. Rebecca turned to face Elena. But the peace we won? Maybe. We're not subordinates anymore. We're equals. Our kids will grow up in a galaxy that respects humanity because we proved we can't be conquered. At the cost of 1,247 lives. At the cost of 1,247 heroes, Rebecca corrected. And tens of thousands of Concilium lives too. Everyone paid. But we're still here. They voted for war. We voted for victory. And we delivered. Elena nodded slowly. I'm leaving diplomatic service. Going back to teaching. What will you teach? History. Specifically how to avoid repeating it. The Concilium thought they could bully a smaller power because they had numbers and tradition on their side. They forgot that determination and innovation can overcome raw strength. Elena smiled grimly. I want to make sure the next generation, human and alien, remembers that lesson. Professor Vasquez. Has a nice ring to it. They stood together in silence, watching the sunset paint the memorial in shades of gold and crimson. Above them, stars were beginning to appear, stars that now represented not threats but possibilities. The war was over. The peace had been won. And humanity had claimed its place among the stars not through conquest, but through the simple, terrible determination to survive. The alien empires had voted for war, confident in their superiority. Humanity had voted for victory, certain of nothing but their refusal to surrender. In the end, only one vote mattered, the vote written in courage, sacrifice, and the unbreakable human spirit. That vote had counted most of all.